Hey, I'm Sam. Welcome back to Brickwall Pictures. Today I'm doing a David Fincher tier list in honor of his latest film, Mank, getting nominated for a whole bunch of Academy Awards. I'm going to be ranking his entire filmography and his television projects. If you haven't already seen them, check out my tier lists that I've done for other filmmakers and martial arts performers. Check out my tier lists for people like the Coen brothers, Martin Scorsese, Park Chan-wook, Bong Joon-ho, Jackie Chan, Donnie Yen, Jet Li, Iko Uwais, Tony Jaa, and I have an upcoming one for David Lynch that will be out very soon. So if you're a fan of Lynch, like I obviously am, then stick around for that one. But now let's get started ranking David Fincher's entire filmography, starting off with Seven. And Seven was sort of the first real David Fincher movie. He wasn't being overly manipulated by the studio like he was with Alien Cubed. Seven is a great thriller. I would say that David Fincher, he's done a couple movies that aren't thrillers, but thrillers are really where he excels. His directorial style is just so well suited to the thriller genre, where his really precise direction, his pinpoint accurate camera movement and editing, it just suits that genre really well. One of the criticisms I see him get is that his movies don't have a lot of warmth, or that maybe there's not a lot of humanity in his characters. I think people are maybe grasping at straws a little bit when they're trying to criticize him for that. You don't really need warmth when you're doing really fucked up thrillers like this. His movies are all about the tension and the intrigue and just the immaculate way in which they are assembled. And Seven was the first true stroke of genius to come from David Fincher. And it is a masterpiece. I think it kind of set the bar for this type of thriller. You get murder mystery elements, you get really dark, almost bordering on horror territory when you have the actual Seven Deadly Sin murder executions, which are all extremely creative. It's a great screenplay, first of all, and then it's just executed as perfectly as you could execute that script. There's so many great directorial choices all throughout, one being that it's constantly raining, there's never any sunshine until the ending, which is a stark contrast out in the desert. Great use of contrast throughout. Just great cinematography all throughout. The performances from Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman are really good. This is one movie that Kevin Spacey, turning out to be a total fucking freak, it doesn't ruin this movie because he's the bad guy. Gets the S tier pretty easily. Next up is Fight Club. I've noticed weird cycles around Fight Club, just online, of people saying, oh, Fight Club's great, and then there'll be a weird period of a month or a couple months or whatever where everyone starts hating Fight Club, and then the tide will eventually turn and it'll go back to everyone loving it. The perception of this movie just it rubber bands back and forth, and it's really weird. It's a great movie. The interpretation of the film changes depending on the times in which someone is viewing it. A lot of people, I think, misinterpret Fight Club, but then an equal number of people make whole videos or essays or whatever about how people misinterpret Fight Club, so that it's kind of exacerbating the problem more than it is alleviating it. The whole ecosystem around Fight Club can get kind of messy, but just strip all that away. As a base level film, it's a great piece of work. I'd say it's A or S tier. Brad Pitt is great in it. Edward Norton's great in it. It's one of the performances, even though it's a smaller role, it's one of Jared Leto's best performances, who I really can't stand him in a lot of movies, but he is occasionally great. He needs a good director like Fincher to bring the best out in him. Meatloaf is really fun in his role. His name was Robert Paulson. Fight Club, great film, very quotable, filled with tons of memorable moments and scenes. And it definitely left its fingerprints on a whole generation. It's a film that's really deeply ingrained in the zeitgeist, probably more than any of Fincher's other movies. Seven's pretty deep in the zeitgeist, but Fight Club's one of those movies that just everybody knows about, even if they've never seen it. Everyone knows Fight Club. They all know the first 3 rules of Fight Club. They all know everyone knows the twist, even if they've never seen it, like Psycho. Okay, next up is Zodiac. I think Zodiac is more in favor these days, but for a long time, I would see all these weird opinions where they were Zodiac is Fincher's one bad movie, or I guess aside from Alien, because people like to pretend that one doesn't even exist. Zodiac catches flack from people sometimes, and that just baffles me. I'm going to come right out and say it, that Zodiac is my absolute favorite Fincher film. It's one of those movies that I will just watch anytime. If I happen across it, if I find out someone hasn't seen it, I'll show it to them. It really is one of those comfort movies for me. I love every single thing about Zodiac. It's one of those movies that I saw when some people might say, just watched it too young or whatever, but I don't think so, because I really treasure my first watching of Zodiac. Because as a child, when I watched Zodiac, it really got under my skin. It's one of the handful of movies that legitimately scared me. Not creeped out or whatever. And that whole basement sequence, I just cherish the memory of watching that for the first time and being so freaked out by it. I don't know. I always want more movies to scare me in the way that Zodiac did. Zodiac's like the bar for being scared by a movie for me, because I have like a really personal attachment to that. And it's not just that scene. Like John Carroll Lynch, I made my character actors video essay specifically because I feel like Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill and John Carroll Lynch as the Zodiac Killer, or one of the potential Zodiac killers. I felt like those two performances were so underrated. For some reason, John Carroll Lynch in Zodiac is just like one of the perfect performances to me. He's not in it a huge amount, but it's just every little detail of that performance is so ingrained in my mind, like Brad Dourif in Exorcist 3. Check out my Exorcist 3 Deserves More Respect video if you want to know more about what I'm talking about there. I love how all of the killing scenes are handled, how you don't really see the killer. The broad daylight stabbing where they're tied up gets more disturbing every time I see it. I just love it. The use of Hurdy-Gurdy Man, the Donovan song Hurdy-Gurdy Man, I think is one of the best like needle drops in film history. There have been times where like I specifically felt like listening to the song Hurdy-Gurdy Man, so I watched all of Zodiac just to get to the song usage. It also helps that it made me a fan of Donovan, the Scottish folk singer who did that song. Next up is Alien 3, which was Fincher's actual first movie, but it doesn't really feel like a Fincher movie to any degree is the thing. Like, it doesn't even feel like a Fincher movie with studio meddling. It feels like just a studio movie had their way with some of the material that he shot. In recent years, a lot of people have been going back and going, oh, Alien 3 is actually good. Maybe we judged it unfairly, but I saw it recently. It's not. It is a bad movie. I would say it's still probably a little bit better, or maybe on par with like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but to be fair, I do dislike those more than a lot of people do. A lot of people seem to like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, but I think those both just suck. Alien 3 is probably a little bit better than those, but it's not good. It's not worth watching, I wouldn't say. Charles Dance is fun to see. He's actually okay in it. Like, his performance is pretty good. Ripley's fine, but honestly, she didn't really feel like the same character to me, like with what they did with her. It's not horrible. It's definitely like a D tier film, though, and that's probably being a little generous. It could probably go an E. I'm gonna put it all the way down an E. It's not good, and I'm not even comparing it to like Alien and Aliens. Like, if you want to compare those, the gulf in quality between the first two Alien films and every other Alien film is just this huge chasm, insurmountable. Next up is Mindhunter, one of David Fincher's 2 TV projects. It's one that he's more involved with. Like, he directed far more episodes, and you really feel his style a lot more. Mindhunter is phenomenal. It's so fucking good. I thought the first season was incredible, except for there was like one scene in the pilot which was, I think, maybe the worst scene in Fincher's career. It's like the meet cute between the main guy and his professor girlfriend. The like meet cute scene between the two of them is so fucking bad. It feels like it's ripped from some other show or some bad movie. Outside of that one scene, fantastic show. Ed Kemp is, of course, a standout from that show. I didn't like the main actor very much, the protagonist guy, at first, but I really grew to love his performance, especially in season 2, because I kind of got what they were doing with his character more, which I didn't really get in the first season. Mindhunter, the first season I watched twice. I watched it the first time and loved it. I rewatched the whole season in anticipation of season 2, and I'll be doing that with season 2 when season 3 hopefully comes out. There's rumors that it might be canceled, but it's like not definite. I really hope they get into the season, because as much as I loved season 1, season 2 got even better. Like, season 2 is like flawless television. I don't want to overload the S tier, but it's S tier television. It really is. Okay, Panic Room. Panic Room has the Fincher flair for sure, but it doesn't feel quite as refined or perfected as some of his later films do. You could say that about 7-2, where it's like, it's not as pinpoint precise as his later films are. But in Panic Room, the scenes show a little more. I do like Panic Room quite a lot. Jared Leto's pretty good in it again. I guess he works well with Fincher. I really like Forrest Whitaker in it. Jodie Foster's good. It's probably the best Kristen Stewart performance, even though she's a little child. To be fair, I haven't seen some of her more prestige movies. I haven't seen like Personal Shopper and stuff. I've only seen her be awful in like American Ultra and shit like that. You know who really stands out in this movie is Dwight Yoakam. it's an inspired casting choice, and he's really good in this movie. So yeah, the whole cast is good. Fincher's direction is good. The script is, it's got a great premise, but it doesn't quite fire on all cylinders, and it doesn't wrap up in a way that is entirely cohesive. You know, all the elements work, but it's kind of a minor work. You know how you would say like it's a minor Fincher film or a lesser Fincher film. I'd put Panic Room in the C tier. There's nothing really like wrong with it. It just doesn't excel in the ways that a lot of his other movies do. Next up is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I don't like this one. Some people really love it. For me, it's not the kind of story I'm looking for when I go into a Fincher joint. Maybe that's that criticism of him lacking warmth in his characters or whatever. I think for me, it's just, I don't really like the story or the premise. It's not something that interests me. Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett are two actors I do really like. You know, they've given a lot of great performances, but I just don't care about their characters in this. Plus, it's way too long for what it is at 2 hours and 46 minutes, you know, and to be honest, I don't think I even finished the whole thing because it just never grabbed me. The story never gripped me. Fincher's like usually gorgeous cinematography I didn't really like it in this one. Like the color palette just wasn't jiving with me. I didn't really like anything about Benjamin Button, to be honest. I'm gonna put it in the D tier. That's a personal taste thing. I don't think it's like a terrible movie by any means. Like it's well assembled, I guess, but I just really don't like it. Even the title, The Curious Case of, fuck off. I don't like that title. Okay, next up is The Game. The Game is a very mixed bag. I liked The Game a whole lot more on a first watch. On subsequent watches, which I've seen it I think 3 or 4 times now, the seams show a little more. Fincher's a director who could really execute a twist, like a good twist ending or a twist, like a midpoint twist, like with Gone Girl. The biggest problem with The Game is that it has a huge twist, but it twists in the wrong direction. The ending is not at all satisfying for what we've gone through. Is it surprising? Maybe. You might guess it coming. Maybe like 30 minutes in, I was like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be the twist, because it would be surprising, but I hope it isn't, because this would be a really lackluster payoff for all the build-up. But that is what it is. I think the ending's kind of lame, and it undercuts a lot of what we saw beforehand. It deflates a lot of the tension, especially on a second watch. And there's also just like a lot of things that don't really add up. Like I call it jigsaw logic, like how in the Saw movies, Jigsaw can somehow predict what everybody's going to do flawlessly with no room for error, and he can account for them making these like really unreasonable decisions. The Game has a bit of that. That being said, though, like I really like Michael Douglas's performance in it. I love the atmosphere of the piece. The cinematography is great. It's got a good like creepy ambiance to it, but just the script has some big issues with it. For me, the execution is like A tier execution, but the script is like D or E tier. I'm gonna put it in S tier. I'll kind of split the difference and put it in, C tier. Jesus. I'm going to put it in C tier and split the difference. Okay, next up, let's go with The Social Network. It's a fucking phenomenal screenplay from Aaron Sorkin. I hope David Fincher does another Aaron Sorkin script at some point, because the two of them, Sorkin's dialogue with Fincher's like precise mechanical direction, work really well together, I think. I really like The Social Network as a movie, as someone who fucking despises Facebook and everything it stands for, and can't fucking stand Zuckerberg, and fuck you, Zuckerberg. but anyway, yeah, I remember when this movie came out, a lot of people were like, wow, this really paints Zuckerberg in a not so great light. But really, the real Zuckerberg is way fucking worse than the movie Zuckerberg. And the movie Zuckerberg is already pretty detestable. Jesse Eisenberg's really good in it. It's got one of his best performances, possibly his best performance, and I say that as someone who actually does like Jesse Eisenberg more than a lot of people seem to. He's been getting a lot of hate lately, I've noticed. People call him like Wooden or whatever. I actually like the guy. I think he's a good actor. Check out The Double with Jesse Eisenberg. That's a really underrated thriller from director Richard Ayoade, who's fucking one of the most underrated directors. I really hope he does another movie at some point, but his 2 movies didn't really do great financially. Andrew Garfield's really good at it too. The editing is just remarkable, and the score, the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross original soundtrack is wonderful. The cinematography is like so much. It goes so above and beyond what was needed to tell this story of Facebook. You know, it's like a little talkie drama. A lot of Sorkin scripts aren't treated too preciously with like visually speaking, because he's such a dialogue heavy writer. You know, it could all just be like walk and talks, but Fincher goes the extra mile to make this a beautiful film. I would put it in the A tier. Next up is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Now this one is a remake. I know some people maybe skipped over A Girl with the Dragon Tattoo or didn't like it owing to the fact that it's a remake. If it helps to consider it an alternate adaptation of the source material, go ahead and do that, because it's a fucking great movie. It is so good, this movie. The performances are wonderful. Rooney Mara and Daniel Craig are both great, but especially Alexander Skarsgård knocks it out of the park in his supporting role. He's so good in this movie. It's got a good creeping, slow build. It's got a great sense of intrigue and mystery, and then it really ratchets up at a certain point, all the way until the finale. I really wish that Fincher got to make his sequels. Like, this could have been a Girl with the Dragon Tattoo franchise headed up by David Fincher, but instead they pulled the plug on him because I guess it didn't make enough money, and then they tried rebooting it with Fede Alvarez, who he's a good director too, but I don't give a shit about his version of it. I wanted to see Fincher continue his thing. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is so good. I would say it's like, between this and Gone Girl, it's like the pinnacle of Fincher's visual style, the really precise use of like subtle camera movements and like immaculately edited, like every little cut is just perfect. The depth of field use is really noteworthy in this, I would say, which is maybe a weird thing to say because depth of field doesn't usually get called out on its own, but in here it makes a huge difference when he does it. The visual effects are just flawlessly executed. This is one of those movies where you might watch it and not even realize there were visual effects. Watch the behind the scenes on this movie and you will be blown away how flawlessly the CGI is used. Like, CGI is overused in a lot of movies. David Fincher is one of those few directors, like in Mindhunter too also. Mindhunter, you watch it and you don't even realize there's any VFX going on. The way David Fincher uses VFX is the way that VFX should be used, I think. They're invisible and they elevate without taking anything away. There's no trade-off the way he uses CG and digital effects. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is another A-tier film. House of Cards was a Netflix original. It was one of the first like really big, notable Netflix originals, actually. It's easy to forget now there's so many Netflix originals, but this came out when Netflix was kind of ramping up production of those. It was also, it had a huge cast. It had Robin Wright, it had Kevin Spacey, who unfortunately his tarnished legacy has kind of ruined the prospect of this show, at least for me. I mean, I never finished House of Cards. I got I think halfway through season 2 or something. I don't even know how many seasons there were. Anyway, I lost interest in the show at a certain point pretty quickly, to be honest, and I never loved it. I thought it had a slick visual presentation, but the story didn't grab me too much. Mahershala Ali was my favorite part of the show, I'll tell you that. And honestly, his scenes are the only ones I remember. It never fully grabbed me. Well made, of course. Fincher's involvement, I don't think, went too far beyond the initial inception of the show. Like, he obviously directed at the start, but I think once the show got going, he kind of stepped away. Anyway, probably C tier. Gone Girl is remarkable. It's fantastic. I've read the Gone Girl novel as well, and it's a great fucking book. Basically, the film ends like a substantial chunk earlier than the book ends. If you saw Gone Girl and you were like, oh, I wonder what happened next, read the book because it keeps going for a little while longer, actually. There's more to it. That being said, the movie doesn't feel incomplete. Like, where it ends feels like a natural conclusion, and then the book just happens to have a little more and then still ends very well. It's a great film. I think Ben Affleck's actually really good in it, even though I don't really like him very much. I don't really like him in, I don't think, any other movies. I can't think of another movie where I think he's good. Rosamund Pike is phenomenal in it, though. The whole supporting cast is great. Tyler Perry's such a weird fucking pick for that character, just as an actor, in a serious role, since he's usually doing the Medea comedies, But I mean, he's good in it. So is Neil Patrick Harris. He's great in his little supporting role. Carrie Coon is an actress I really like, and she's great in the sister role. Like I mentioned when I was talking about Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Fincher's direction is just so perfectly executed. His cinematography, the editing, everything is just flawless, and it's a great story. I mean, it's very rewatchable. The twist in this, I won't spoil the twist. You probably already know it. You've probably already seen it. I won't spoil it though anyway. It's one of the best movie twists in recent memory. But beyond just being a good twist, it's just Fincher's execution of it. The montage that unveils the twist is one of the best movie montages. And that's on top of it already being a good twist in literary form. But David Fincher really uses the cinematic medium to elevate the twist, because you can't really do a montage like that, at least not as well in book form. So Gone Girl, it's A or S tier. I'm not exactly sure which it is. I think I like Gone Girl a little more than the three in the A tier here. So I think I'll go ahead and put it in the S tier. And last up is Mank, which is his latest film. I was very excited for it because it had actually been a while since he made a movie, since Gone Girl, which was a few years ago. I mean, he'd been doing Mindhunter in the meantime, but it's, great to see another Fincher movie. To be honest, Mank disappointed me. I don't think it's a story that is best tailored to what Fincher excels in. I think Gary Oldman's very good in it. It's a beautiful film, visually speaking. There's some great sequences. And if you were to just focus on the dialogue's wonderful. It's got a great old Hollywood feel. It's a script by David Fincher's father, if you didn't know. It's kind of like a tribute to his dad. Dialogue-wise, the dialogue's fantastic. But the actual story being told, I don't really care for it. I don't really like the structure of the film either. It's got some really good strengths, but it's just, for me, it comes down to the story. The story and structure didn't really grab me. I think Fincher executed this script as well as it could possibly be executed, but I think it is a flawed script. I think there's problems with it. For me, it's another C tier. Yeah. No B tier, coincidentally. But let's look over our rankings here and see if I want to change any of them. So S tier, we got Seven, Zodiac, Mindhunter, and Gone Girl. So Gone Girl was the one I was on the fence about. Yeah, S tier feels right for it, though. I think Dragon Tattoo and Facebook, what the fuck, the Social Network are anchored in A for me. I could see Fight Club going up to S. It's been a while since I watched Fight Club. Maybe I need a rewatch to refresh my memory, but for now I'm going to leave it in A. Does anything in the C tier deserve going up to B? Let's see. If anything in the B tier was going to move up, it would be The Game. Because I do like a lot of what The Game is doing. It's just the twist kind of falls apart. Honestly, if the movie if it had a different twist, or if it maybe ended a little earlier and chopped the twist off and ended really bleakly, I think it would be B tier, maybe even A tier, honestly, but the twist really does bring it down. The rest of these, yeah, I think C tier is right. Benjamin Button, I wouldn't be surprised if other people put it higher up, but for me, it is D. It just doesn't work for me. And Alien Cubed, yeah, E tier sounds about right. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that ranking. So that was my David Fincher tier list. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, check out more of my stuff that I do here on this channel. Stay tuned for more tier lists and the other tier lists I've already done. Plus, I don't just do tier lists, I do video essays and regular movie reviews and all kinds of stuff. And by the way, this is just what my voice sounds like. If you've already left a voice comment, I'm going to timestamp you to this moment and humiliate your ass. So, don't you feel like a fool.